Welcome back, everybody. I thought I'd do a real quick video before the kickoff of the Chicago Bears season against the Green Bay Packers. We'll see how they're going to do this year. I'm kind of optimistic they'll be better than the last two seasons, but it's hard to be much worse, but who knows? So in honor of the kickoff to the football season, we're going to do one of my 4 football sets, which is going to be the 1988 Topps football set, which is a set that I put together more recently after our good friend Robbie actually picked up a wax box and we opened it together. I went ahead and completed this about 4 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into it and talk a little bit about the 88 season. Again, football is not my number one sport, so I don't know all the Hall of Famers and all the stars, but I definitely have some memories going back to this season just because the Bears were still a pretty good team at this point and actually were a semifinalist until they got beat up pretty badly by the eventual Super Bowl champions 49ers that year. All right, so this was the third season in which we had a Jerry Rice card. As they started off, all the sets in the late 80s, they had these 1,000-yard rushing receiving club cards. So we could see a second card of a lot of these great players during this era, including like Eric Dickerson, now with the Colts at that point. So I'll go through here and kind of point out some of the other big names. Gary Clark was a decent name at that time. On the second page here, good old Herschel Walker, right before he was traded to the Vikings for all those draft picks that eventually turned Dallas into a dynasty. That's Steve Largent. This may be Steve Largent's last card. Roger Craig right here. Always loved this name as a football fan, Webster Slaughter. I just thought it kind of sounded like a perfect football name. There's Marcus Allen down here in the corner. And Andre Reed right here at the top is from the Buffalo Bills. We're starting to get really good at this point and starting to have a lot of offensive prowess. Some of the highlights for this year is this was the last season that you saw Tom Landry and also Bill Walsh coach. Bill Walsh completed the season by winning the Super Bowl, actually, and it was the final year for Pete Rozelle. The Bengals were the opponent for the 49ers in the Super Bowl that year. So we kind of jump through the cards. But you can see it starts off previously with highlighting the Super Bowl champions, which obviously had the first African-American quarterback, leading a team to the Super Bowl with Washington the previous season. Then we have all these record-breaking cards. We have Steve Largent, Joe Montana, Walter Payton's final card, Jerry Rice. And then we lead in, obviously, to highlighting the Super Bowl champions, which has the team card followed by Doug Williams. And then it features the Washington Football Club, at that point known as the Redskins, on there. So the design's pretty simple. I think it's a pretty classic one, to be honest. It's got the solid-looking football helmet here, followed by a player image, typically with their helmets off, so you can really see the player. I think a lot of the cards earlier in the decade didn't have a lot of I think it was actually the late 70s, they didn't have maybe the licensing rights or something, so you missed a lot of the team logos. So they definitely took advantage of it by the time they were able to get into the late 80s. And this was actually right at the year, I think right before the year they started having competition in the football market. I think the pro sets came out the following year, and then like everybody produced a football set the following year. I think you had the pro sets and score the following season. All right, the runner-up that season was John Elway's Broncos. We got John Elway there. And the runner-up for the NFC, who actually went on to the Super Bowl then and won, was Joe Montana's 49ers. And this team was just loaded with Hall of Famers. Joe Montana, Steve Young, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, just to name a few on here. That's not even talking about the defensive team, which also had like Ronnie Lott and Charles Haley. This team was tough. And we have the Saints, I think, who were a playoff team that previous season. Actually did a playoff push this season as well. We got the Bears, who were runner-up, as I mentioned. They lost the championship game after winning the division and winning their very first playoff game against Philadelphia in the Fog Bowl. They lost to San Francisco at home, 28-3. Buffalo was actually the runner-up right before they started going into their series of Super Bowl appearances, and they lost to Cincinnati 21-10. But here we go. We got the Bears. So we got good old Tom Zach there, Jim McMahon, Neil Anderson, some pretty good names on the Bears and their history. As far as Hall of Famers go, we got Jimbo Colvert. I believe Jay Hilberger might be in there. Steve McMichael just recently got in. We got the Fridge, Ronnie Dent, Ron Rivera, big name, Mike Singletary, Dan Hampton. Dave Duerson was a good player for us back in the day. We have the Cleveland Browns. Got Ozzie Newsome up here, pretty good name back in the day. I don't know all the Football Hall of Famers, so I'm sorry I'm missing ones clearly. We got Warren Moon as we go through here. The Houston Oilers, later became the Titans. I always liked the Oilers uniforms for some reason. Like Check became a pretty successful coach too. And we have the Colts. Gold Jack Trudeau. We got Eric Dickerson on the team there. There's Seattle. Steve Archin, as I mentioned. Good old Brian Bosworth. Brian Bosworth was a bust. He was the big rookie card when this first came out, but was quickly eclipsed by a young person for the Raiders that we'll get to later on, which is the reason people still open these boxes, is to try and get that card in a perfect grade. We got the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing right now against Tampa. I'm not sure how they're doing. Chris Dolman, I think that is his rookie card. Hall of Famer there. Got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Opening up this wax box brought back some good memories of opening up these old football cards. Patriots. We have the Dolphins. Dan Marino. Duper and Clayton. We got the Chargers. You have your passing leaders, which are your league leaders, I should say, which are going to have both the AFC and NFC player on the same card. So we got Joe Montana featured on that one. Dickerson again. Wide receiver leaders, or scoring leaders, was Jerry Rice and a kicker. Here we go, got the Bills. As I mentioned, we're a runner-up this year with the AFC Championship, and I think they went on then to start their string of actually being in the Super Bowl without winning. We got Jim Kelly, but a lot of the big names were here at this point. They still had a few missing. But I think Thurman Thomas may have been like the last big addition they had, and they started just going on that roll. Bruce Smith. We have the Eagles. Good old Cunningham. He was so much fun to watch when he was healthy. Reggie White. True beast and leader. The Cardinals. This is their first year in Arizona. So these are pictures of probably from their final season in St. Louis. Originally from Chicago. Here's the Cowboys. Tony Dorsett. Had Tall Jones. I think it might have been the last seasons for both those guys. And the Giants, who actually took a pretty big step back at this point before they started coming back on and becoming a Super Bowl contender. Phil Simms. Got Lawrence Taylor, big name there. Good old Harry Carson, another big name. We've got the Rams in Los Angeles. To get later in the set, they have less cards for each team. So the teams that are playoff teams tend to have more cards featured in the set. And the Jets are pretty bad at this point. And the Packers, who are terrible before they got Brett Favre and just became a great powerhouse within the NFC North division. Team that we're still losing to this day. I think it was the NFC Central was what they called it at that point. The Raiders, and there's the Bo Jackson rookie card. That's the one people keep chasing at to be able to kind of try and open up these packs and see if they can get a PSA 10. Pretty expensive item if you can get it. You can't. You know, it's still a pretty nice card to add in your collection, even if it isn't necessarily in a PS 10 condition. Marcus Allen, James Lofton, pretty good offensive players there. Howie Long. We got the Bengals. Got Boomer Esiason in there. Got the Buccaneers. We're getting near the end. Benny Testaverde was also a big rookie card in this set. He had a pretty good career himself. And those old Buccaneer uniforms. They're kind of fun as throwbacks now, but man, they were kind of hard to look at. We got the Chiefs. Were pretty bad during this point in their history. Christian Okoye, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but he was quite a beast in the backfield. We got the Detroit Lions. Might be a team that could be a playoff contender coming from our division this season. And the Atlanta Falcons. They're still playing outside at this point in their history. And then it concludes with the checklists. Those are the final cards in the set. I think I have the final checklist up here, and this is actually start of 89, which we will do at a later date. So I told you, quick video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll end it with the Bo Jackson rookie card. All right. Hope you guys have a great start to your football season, and whoever you support does really well. If you're a Bears fan, I'm right there with you, and I hope we do really well, and we're not disappointing yet again. Take care, guys.